Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC Mexico City. In this matchup, we have Cristian Quiñonez taking on Kris Moutinho. I'm going to be honest, this might be one of the harder fights for me to predict. Now, I know what you're thinking. What? Why is it so hard? It's Kris Moutinho. Quiñonez should beat him easily. And yeah, on paper, this really is kind of straightforward. Quiñonez, I'm pretty sure he's the biggest favorite on the card. He's a 6-1 favorite. He's the cleaner striker. He has the better technical boxing. And stylistically, this is kind of a knockout waiting to happen, I think. But you know what they say, MMA is never that simple. And it is the most unpredictable sport in the world, so you never really know. And somehow I just feel like Quiñonez should not be a 6-1 favorite. But with that said, let's look at our two fighters. Starting with Kris Moutinho. He's currently 14-7 as a professional, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Now, he fought at the UFC previously, and for those of you who don't know, he was the green-haired fighter who had fought Sean O'Malley and just got picked apart to a third-round TKO. The UFC gave him another shot. Where is it? And he got TKO by Guido Cantanetti, or Cantanetti, I believe is how you pronounce it. Suffered some other losses, but has since then won on a nice 5-fight win streak, all of them by finish. And then basically came back to the UFC and then got obliterated by Malcolm Wellmaker last June. He fought so hard to get back to the UFC just to be a lamb to slaughter again against another prospect. Like I said, this time Wellmaker. He has not fought since then. Now, for Cristian Quiñonez, he's 18-5 as a professional, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Now, in the UFC specifically, he is 1-2 in the promotion. Now, he did beat Long Zhao to get into the organization, which has aged somewhat well. I think Long Zhao's a pretty good fighter. Or not spectacular, but pretty good. Then had a knockout win over Kaid Taya. But since then is now on a 2-fight skid, getting submitted by Kyung Ho Kong. And then most recently, almost exactly 2 years ago, got submitted by Hani Barcelos. So it's been quite a while since Quiñonez has fought in the UFC. Like I said, it will be almost exactly 2 years. Now, Moutinho hasn't been the most active. Granted, he got starched viciously last June. So I'm kind of glad he's taken the time off he's had. How much time has he had? About 8 months. Okay. Like I said, this might be a bit of a tricky fight for me to predict, if I'm being honest with you guys. But without further ado, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Cristian Quiñonez. He's a solid striker, like I said. He's good boxing, sharp combinations. He throws straight, clean punches, and does a good job of setting up his shots. And when Quiñonez is confident and flowing, he looks like the much more technical fighter. And on paper, he should win this fight. I'm going to be real. He's faster, he's younger, he's more precise. If this stays a clean striking match at range, he's likely to land the bigger shots early. Here's my problem. He hasn't fought in nearly 2 years. And by the time this fight happens, it'll be, like I said, just shy of a 2-year layoff. And that matters because, your timing can fade, sharpness fades, ring rust is a real thing. And especially considering he's on a losing skid, it's not really coming into this with any sort of momentum. That can really affect you. And like I said, ring rust is real. Another issue is that he has been shown to be outworked. When opponents push a pace, ace, and force prolonged exchanges or grappling exchanges too, like Hani Barcelos did, Quiñonez can be drawn into defensive shell rather than responding. And while he's a good striker, he's not invincible. He's been hurt before, and he's been pressured before, and he hasn't responded well to it. So while the betting line suggests dominance, I think there's some cracks in that foundation. Now, looking at Kris Moutinho, first thing I can think of is, he's tough. He's one of the grittier fighters in the division. I can say that for sure. We saw that in his debut against Sean O'Malley, where he absorbed so much abuse and kept moving forward. And now, yes, like I said, he's been knocked out badly. Malcolm Wellmaker did it with one vicious right hook. So durability is a question. But if his chin isn't completely gone, it's important to his game because Moutinho's entire game is built on pressure and pace. He doesn't rely on perfect technique. He relies on making fights ugly. He throws in volume. He marches forward. And he makes you uncomfortable. And here's the key. If he survives the first round, and that is a massive if for me, but if he does, I think the dynamic shifts from precision versus chaos to conditioning versus composure. Because Moutinho doesn't need to be a high-level grappler to make this competitive. He just needs to force exchanges, mix in the clinch, and maybe threaten level changes occasionally, and make Quiñonez uncomfortable. Because Quiñonez, again, he's shown to be outworked, especially on the ground, but he can be outworked on the feet as well. And I think Moutinho can absolutely work with this. Now, just looking at the stylistic clash, I think the fight really just comes down to round one. Because I think Quiñonez's best path is early and clean. Sharp boxing, straight shots, possibly a knockout inside of 5 minutes. If he lands first and hurts Moutinho early, this could end very quickly. But if Moutinho eats those shots and keeps walking forward, I think, it changes how this fight goes. Because Moutinho's, I don't think he doesn't fight at a technical pace. That's just not him. He fights at an exhausting pace. It's shown, right? Now, rewatching some of his fights in the regional scene, like against Elijah Harris, obviously not the best record, right? 6-7. But he was able to outwork him, land good combinations. And Moutinho's, not for nothing, during his time out of the UFC, he's shown improvements, and he has added some more technique to his game. But it's still, at the end of the day, an exhausting pace he puts on. He throws consistently, he pressures consistently, and he forces you to respond consistently. And if Quiñonez isn't fully sharp after a 2-year layoff, that kind of pace can become dangerous. Plus, elevation. Now, I don't know how much this will affect Quiñonez's cardio. Now, we have seen him kind of fade when he fought Jorge Barcelos, which that fight was in Mexico as well. So that could affect him. And while, I can't say for certain Moutinho has the greatest cardio, or I don't know how well it will work at high elevations, I think if this becomes a high output brawl, the fighter with more sustainable pressure could gain an edge here. So just looking at the risk factor, let's be honest, picking Moutinho is very risky. He is a 6-1 underdog for a reason. He can be hit cleanly. He's been knocked out before, and his defense is pretty bad. And Quiñonez absolutely has the tools to stop him, especially early. But the risk goes both ways, because Quiñonez, like I said, man, he hasn't fought in 2 years, and coming off losses, that really affects me trying to pick him. And if his confidence isn't fully there, a fighter who refuses, and especially against a fighter who refuses to back down, can expose that. So this isn't, for me, about who's more technical. It's about who can impose their will. And for that reason, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going to pick Kris Moutinho. I'm actually going to do it. I'm actually going to pick the 6-1 underdog. You can laugh at me in the comments. You can say I'm a fool. You know what? You're probably right. And, seeing how this fight plays out, I can either be laughing all the way to the bank, or I can be on my post-fight show going, you were all right. What was I thinking? Because on paper, this is Quiñonez fights. Cleaner boxer, better technique, better optics. But MMA isn't fought on paper. And if Moutinho survives the early storm, and that's the entire key, I think he can drag this into deep waters and make it uncomfortable. And Quiñonez has shown he can be outworked. And yes, I know, like I said, man, I know I'm going to be laughed at the comments. I know this is a big underdog, but this isn't just like, I'm picking the plus 150 underdog or something like that. I think he has a shot at this. No, I'm picking a huge underdog here. But sometimes I think you just got to trust your instincts. And I trust mine. So for the official pick, I'm going with Kris Moutinho. And I'm going to pick him via a late TKO. I think he can put a pace on Quiñonez. I think he can hurt him as the fights go on. And I think Quiñonez will wilt under the pressure eventually. And possibly Moutinho gets a late TKO. Again, not my most confident pick. Let me be clear on this. But I'm going to trust myself, and I trust us that I can do this. Or trust my abilities. So I'm going to pick Kris Moutinho. I'm going to pick him via late TKO, possibly even an upset decision. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think's going to win. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. And remember, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.